Yeah, we're live. Actually, everybody, everybody in the live feed that's normally here, say hello to everybody that's out in Facebook land too, because I'm trying to do something. We're trying to go live on two different ones, so I wanted to include here too. So tonight we got some really cool stuff though. Frosty cold beverage. So let's. I'm gonna see if I can unplug you for a little bit, and hopefully you will last long enough. I'm going to move you back just a little bit so you can see what the heck is going on. This right here, I'm going to have to adjust you a little bit. Obviously, you're going to have to come up just a little bit. So it's better. Okay, so here's what we got going on. This is, it was supposed to be a GT500 blower. It's actually supposed to be an M122 from a 5.8 liter Trinity motor. It's not. Turns out it's not. I went over to my buddy Mahovitz's house, or to his house, to his shop, and said, "Hey, do you have any of the M122 blowers, or do you have any 5.4 basically, or 5.8 blowers?" And he said, "Yes, I think we do. Come out here." He goes, "Hey, you're in luck. I have a box. I have one sitting brand new in a box." I'm like, that would be kind of odd, right? It would be kind of odd. But as it turns out, he did have a brand new one sitting in a box. But it is a Ford Racing version. I think that this is probably for like a Coyote kit or something. But it is the 2.3 liter blower, which is awesome. And you can see we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff like this throttle inlet versus what we're actually wanting to use. The cool thing is I have the intake manifold and adapter plate on this LS. And we're going to do some other cool things with this LS tonight. In fact, we're going to take it apart. This is the 4.8, guys that have been watching the show will know this is the 4.8 that I got when I got the two motors from the wrecking yard. I picked up an all aluminum 5.3, an L33, good score. We've already run that a bunch. We did the camshaft test between the Truck Norris cam and the Sloppy Stage 2. We did that NA and under boost. And so the L33 worked out really good. This was the other motor besides the 5.3. Which didn't have worked out very well. I had some cool videos I put up though, because we ran this thing without headers on it. I actually got it on the dyno, got it running. It had good oil pressure, which was one of the things that I checked before I run these things on the dyno. And it worked out very well. Kind of. It started up, it had good oil pressure. It started up and it ran. It just didn't run on all of the cylinders. So I showed the video of this thing with flames coming out. Unfortunately, the flames very cool when you're running something on the dyno with no headers on it. You can see the pulsing and you can see the fire shoot out and all the goodness happening. What you can't see is flames and fire and goodness shooting out of all of the cylinders because all of them were not firing. So what I did was took it apart to find out what was going on. And it turns out that it had a few bad things going on. So what I'm going to do tonight, I'm doing a full video on tearing it down, running it, showing the bad things, taking it apart, putting it back together, and fixing it all with as a matter of fact, I'll show you. Because, every LS guy that I know has totes or boxes or all kinds of stuff full of like extra spare junk parts. So there's lifters and trays and rockers and stands and, timing chains and all kinds of crazy stuff. So I haven't taken apart, I don't know, let's just call it 50 LS motors. I'm sure it's more than that. But having taken that many apart and broken some and fixed them and given them away or whatever, I have a whole stash of spare parts. And you might think, well, why would you keep like used lifters? Well, funny you should ask. Because on this particular application, these right here, the trays went bad. That allowed the lifter, which is this right here, allowed the lifter to spin around in this. See, normally they're held in there pretty tight, nice and solid. But when they get lots of miles on them and they get really hot and they're worn out, they'll allow the lifter to basically go and rotate. And when it does that, having the lifter like this on the camshaft, it just tore the cam up. So you guys can, in Facebook Live, you can see too. So normally it's nice and tight in there and won't allow it to move. But when this thing wears out, it allows it to rotate like this. And then now the roller is not rolling with the camshaft anymore. It's rolling against the camshaft or 90 degrees to the camshaft. Also not good. So what it did was took at least one cam lobe out, at least one lifter out. Also, it broke one of the push rods. It also broke one of the rockers. But the guy who had this before me tried to glue the rocker down, but not before driving an oversized bolt through. I don't know. I have no idea what he's thinking. It's all going to be a good video. You guys will get to see it also. But what we're going to do is, after I go over what's going on with the blower here, we're going to dive into this thing and take it apart so that I can use my bag of Super Richie magic tricks and hopefully fix it. So hopefully it'll work out good. But this right now, like I said, the whole story behind this, and I'm going to be running this. In fact, I might not be running it just with this blower. We might also run it with the late model 5.8 M122 if I can get my hands on one while I'm down here. But what I wanted to do today, and that's why this is mocked up, is because I didn't know if this snout was the proper length to line up with our factory truck damper and pulley assembly. So I'll go ahead and show you what's going on here. With this blower, the nice thing about this is this will allow us to run, as you can see here, like giant sized throttle body. So it allows us to run like an oversized one, which, if you know anything about positive displacement blowers, you cannot put too big of a throttle body on a positive displacement blower. It wants all of the airflow that you can possibly get going into it. So if I could put 2 of these on there, I would. The only thing that it does, the only downside to that is drivability can kind of suffer. And you guys know, and I'm sure the guys at Facebook know, having done blowers and stuff before, I've run hundreds and hundreds of blower tests, M90s all the way up, lots of Whipple stuff, lots of Kenny Bell stuff, Vortex stuff, Powerdyne, Procharger, Torque Storm, Pax, you name it, everything. For years and years and years we've been doing this. So I've run lots of these, and we've done lots of testing on throttle body sizing and what it does and how much extra power it gets. So if you have vacuum present in the throttle system, in the whole inlet system before the blower, you're going to see, and you can get rid of that by putting a bigger throttle body or inlet tube or something and increase the airflow. You're going to reduce the vacuum here and increase the boost out of here. So it's nothing but a win-win situation. I'm going to demonstrate that, hopefully, and I'll show you why. Because if we take a look over here, you guys can come over here. I'm going to take you guys. I'm going to take the Facebookers for a walk here. So if you take a look over here, so this is the other parts on the kit. That's the guy to talk to. Hopefully you can kind of see that. But you can see the adapter. That's for 102 or 105 millimeter throttle body. That's for a standard size LS throttle body. And what those do is bolt up and adapt for an M122 blower to a factory LS throttle body. So if you had a factory LS from the wrecking yard and had the thing I like about it, this kit's designed to work with the truck intake or the truck accessory drive, because you'll find a million of those, whereas you're all going to find a handful of Corvette or Camaro or other ones. So this works out very well. But you can use the M122 blower, which would be the less expensive one, not this one, but the factory one. It would be less expensive. You can buy them online, and I would recommend you buying them now before I do this video, before I do the full video on after we do the dyno test, because the prices are probably going to go up. That's happened already with the Cadillac blower, so yeah, just fair warning. But the cool thing is that when we run the M122 blower, we'll be able to run different size throttle bodies. We'll be able to run the stock throttle body, the factory 78 millimeter, hopefully. And then also we have provisions to run a 102. And then when we run this one, we can run a giant size 168 millimeter oval throttle body or whatever. I'm sure AccuFab has something that's sized for that. And that would allow us to get as much airflow as we can. This is a 2.75 inch pulley when we measured it. And so that thing's probably going to make, we're thinking, on a cammed 5.3, we're thinking that that's going to be maybe 15 pounds. It also has, you can see the brick here is an air-to-water intercooler. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and show you guys that stuff. You guys can kind of zoom in. I'll walk you guys in. So we'll take our blower off. You can see underside of the blower. That's a bypass valve. So hopefully you guys, yeah, you guys can see there. I'm going to walk you guys over now and show you what I was showing the rest of the kit here. So you guys can see that, right? So we got adapters for the 102, adapters for the 78. We got fuel rails. That's an alternator mount. We got some bolts. The things in the mystery things in the bag. I'm not going to tell you what they are because that will make people wonder. So this is the gentleman that did all this. The Muse Engineering. You've made a fancy little plate. Look at that. So you guys can see over here. We have our intercooler core sandwiched down there. Look, this is even marked back here. Boost reference, inlet air temp. Got mounts here. Bolt the fuel rail on. And then that pulley will line up with this factory, albeit somewhat damaged. Yeah, that's what happens. But that's kind of cool. So you guys can take a look here. They're cool. This is what I was talking about. Take our boost reference line stuff, inlet air temp. Sandwich got an intercooler core there in the middle. Proudly displaying its name. So that's going on. So what we'll do is we'll pull this off. So let's see, there we go. Intercooler core, intercooler, coolio. And then we have this big, kind of typical for positive displacement roots blowers. We have a big kind of open plenum and very short runners. In fact, I don't know, I hesitate even to call them runners, more of radius entries into the factory cylinder head. So that is our setup for the blower. Like I said, we're going to run this not on this 4.8. We're going to run it on the 5.3, which will be even better because the 5.3 itself will make more power. I think we were with the Truck Norris cam. We were, if I remember right, we were in the, I don't know, low to mid fours, I think, 400. So it should do good. It's intercooled. It is, if you can see, it's got, let's see if I can get that without reflection. There we go. We got 2 in and then 2 out, and the core is divided. So what I'm going to do is we're not going to do a pass in and loop and then pass back out, because then one side gets hotter air than the other. We'll just do 2 in and 2 out and get all the cooling. See my Facebook friends there. 2 in and 2 out. There we go. So that's all good. So what I want to do is I'm going to start, I'm going to jump in and start taking apart this 4.8 liter, because I wanted to do that on camera even before we get into, and we'll get it down to a point where I think I can, start fixing it then. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to flip everybody around. Are you guys ready? You're going to flip around over here. That'll be good. Bring this motor over here. There we go. And then you guys will come over here. There we go. There we go. And then what I think I can do, if I can reach over here, hopefully get you plugged in so we don't lose power. That's the last thing we want. It's all fun and games so we lose power. Okay. So what we're going to do is take this intake back off. Just kind of sitting in there, mocked up, really. Da, 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 da. Yeah, super ugly. One thing I did find out, and you find this out on a number of different LS intake manifolds, is these bolts holding down the valley cover are going to have to be, a lot of times we hit them with a grinder, or we just put, what I like to do is I just go to the store and get button heads and put them on there. Tom, the guy who designed this, he actually countersinks them and puts countersink bolts in there, which is even better. But if we just get button heads, the button heads will go down there and it will help it clear. That particular setup uses these factory style truck gaskets, so they work pretty well. And they help hold it up. But I'll show you something going on here right off the bat with this 4.8. And one of the reasons that we wanted to take it apart. So if we take a look, I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm gonna grab a light real quick so you guys can see better, because that's pretty dark right now. Here we go. Okay. So you can see that's all kinds of ugly. That's one that was you know, let's just say it was not firing. We got some others that are, you know, not really great. So that's part of the reason we want to take it apart. It, you know, wasn't firing on a couple cylinders. Those are bad. We've got, I know I have at least one bent valve, but not only do I have my bag of spare parts, I also have a spare cylinder head. In fact, I have a couple of spare cylinder heads. This one actually is cracked, but what it does have is it has valves. And I happen to need one of these because one of the valves in this head is bent. So look at that, spare parts. And they're both 706 heads. So they'll both fit and just go right now without any problem. I'm going to bring you up a little bit so you guys can see a little bit better. There we go. So what we'll do is just start tearing stuff apart here. Take our gaskets off. Zip the valve covers off. Yeah, this one's definitely ugly. There's no doubt about it. So we'll get our rockers. So as you can see here, this is not supposed to be like that. So for the Facebook guys, that should not come out in two pieces. Yeah, that's not good. But I have my spare of stuff over there. Got a spare rocker stand right there. It's all good. So I got my box of parts here. Some of which I'm even going to reuse. Definitely not the rocker stand. So we'll zip this one off. One thing I'm concerned about is cleaning that port out on that head. I think that's going to take a hammer and chisel, honestly. Pull the plugs out. Factory fresh. pull these off. Little plugs for the back. I've already pulled the front crossover off. Cylinder head bolts. Now the head bolts. As you can see, I have already loosened these. Otherwise, I would not be able to do this with a 3/8 ratchet and one hand. That's why I'm using two hands. Loosen them up. I always do this when I'm taking them off, even when they're torqued down. I take a 1/2 inch like breaker bar. This is a 15 millimeter, and I like to break them free by hand and then zip them off with a gun. This is not a super powerful gun anyway, so I wouldn't be able to do that. But even with the big Milwaukee over there, which should easily take these bolts out, I just like to do it by hand. I can feel if any of them are stubborn. So what we'll do is I'll get the heads off, I'll get the dampener off, get the front cover off, and then we can get into start talking about some question and answer section there. Sharp guys would have noticed I forgot one over here on this side. Put you down here. Set you up right here. Set the cylinder heads on. So grab one. And yeah, that's fine. That one's not good, and that's the good head. Okay. Head gasket. That just kind of check it out. Move around to this side. So we're all got all those out. And for those who are interested, this is a Gen 4 block. They're all the same length. Facebook guys, Gen 4 block, they're all the same length. And I've actually already removed the lifters on these. These are what I think are still the good ones. Over here. What I'm going to do with those is I'm going to take and throw them in a container. We're going to clean them, try to clean them really good, and resurface them. We're going to reuse them. Do I still have the, oh yeah, I do still have the camshaft in there, good. So we'll get to do that. So right now, I'm going to take the damper off. Lucky for me, this thing makes pretty short work of this. The factory stuff is really tight. first time you go to take that off, sometimes it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. So we got our fancy puller. There we go. Such a good feeling to have it break free. You can use a lot of guys will use the gun to take it off, but I don't know. I don't think it's that good for the tool, actually. And I didn't do it this time. Normally I'll put oil on the threads of the tool, just seems to make the tool last longer. But that was pretty easy. You can see this thing has seen better days. You got this, and there's a little chipperoo there. I don't know if that's from I don't think that's from rolling around in the back of the truck. I'm thinking that that's maybe the wrecking yard guys or something. What we got going on here? Yeah. Not excellent, but still good. So what we'll do is take our front cover off. 13 millimeter. All right, let's jump in. Oh, I meant to say 10 millimeters. This together. And then you got 2 on the bottom, going through the pan. Yeah, that's really dark oil. That's not good. Pennzoil. Liquid ball bearings. Okay, so you guys can see the front side of this. We'll move this around a little bit. Well, it's going to be kind of dark though. Dig into this. How's that? Is that better? There we go. You guys should come around here and hang out over here. You guys, everybody get along, okay? Everybody be nice to each other. Okay, there we go. So now I'll take the landing gear off. Just right now, it doesn't matter. Normally what I would do is we spin it around until it's lined up at TDC, and then that way when we take it on, put it off, you know, it's all lined up. Right now for this, we don't care. Right now, we're just making it happen. Okay. Cam retaining plate. I'm thinking this view, my spotlight's in better over here. There we go. That actually looks to be in pretty good shape. And then we got some ugliness going on with the camshaft here. What I think is this is actually, I think I've already put it in. Yeah, this is the camshaft from the L33. If I were to replace the damaged one, because we've already taken this apart once. So I think I'm going to start off with this L33 cam, but I'm going to clean this out a little bit before this happens. So we'll start off with a stock cam, good lifters, good rockers, and good valves in the cylinder heads, and then we should have a running 4.8. That's what I'm hoping. That's what the video will be all about. So, yeah, oh, that's all looks good enough to run. Probably will do a little fancy razor blade work on it, a little razor blade rebuild. I need to be shorter over here, I think, right? Is what needs to happen. There we go. Yeah, all that's gonna work out good. So I'm gonna clean this out a little bit, do a little razor blade vacuum on it, and soak those lifters. Put the camshaft back in, put the lifters back in, fix the head, and I'll show that obviously in the video, just replacing the valve basically. And what I'll do is I'm going to do a little razor blade on the heads, on the deck of the heads, and then also I'll show you where the valve is leaking, and then we'll do I'll do some lapping compound with a drill, and then we'll do a little seating of the valve, make sure that the new one is going to seat, which I'm sure that it will. They're all factory valve jobs. That should be just fine. And then we'll fix the leaking problem, and then after that, it should just all go back together and be running, albeit fairly dirty inside, 4.8 liter. So let's see what you guys got going on. Da, 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 da. So we're going to go over here. I just like the blue background. Da, 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 da. Okay. Now, there we go. Now my camera's working. So obviously I'm excited about all the blower stuff. Want to get that thing running again. It's always going to be nice to have another running motor. And, you guys know that having them run rather than having them not run, and definitely pick the running version, right? Okay, so let's try to answer some questions for tonight. MySpace, not Facebook. Let's see. Uploading Commodore 64. Watching on a green screen. Wow, you guys are still playing Pong? Richard, if you jump over the engine, it's like playing Donkey Kong. Is the signal not good? Because it's not uncommon for it not to be good here at West Tech. It's not uncommon at all. In fact, I'm going to try to move you guys over. Hopefully you guys are doing better. Yep, cam bearings are fine, as always, right? I think they always are. Okay, here he goes. Here he goes. Nothing but cylinder. And then floor. Mike's hard cherry. No, I don't have any of that. My legs should look pretty scuffed up and not tan. What would cause a rich condition near idle on port fuel injected motor? Too much fuel. Can I raise my hand? The video feed's no good, Dan? That's because we're sharing it with somebody else. That's why. Sharing with the Facebook guys. I don't see any questions though from these guys. Maybe I can't see them on Facebook. Wait, here we go. No. Okay, I think we're finish up with our Facebook Live. Something I want to try. Thank you guys all for showing up. Hopefully, if you want, you can come over to the live feed on YouTube. Oh, I do see some pictures here. Do you ever use high volume oil pumps? I do. I like using them actually with turbos and twin turbo deals. It works out very well because you have more fuel flow when you're feeding the turbos. So that's not a bad idea. The other option to use them is you want to use them when you set your clearances looser, obviously, so that you can have more oil. Thank you guys all for showing up on Facebook, and I will see you guys later. And we're off and running. Okay, I'm back. Hopefully, is the video feed better now? Did I solve everything? Too much fuel. Yep, gotcha, right? Think the video feed is large because you're simulcasting on Facebook. I've never seen it. Okay. Why do you use a green screen? What green screen do I use? This one is going to go back together with no ring gap to begin with. But it will have, I do have, as a matter of fact, I do have these springs. I just grabbed a set of heads that I had from when I got the spare head. I grabbed another set that I had there that I forgot. It was a set of 317 heads that had these 26-918 beehive springs on them. And those actually were 317 heads that I borrowed from Troy at West Tech that I used a long time ago for a video or for a head test when I was testing the 317s. And so I snatched these back off. I'm probably going to put these on the 4.8 head. I want to see if the 4.8 is going to work first, and then we'll try that. Because obviously, if the 4.8 works, or should I say when it works, then we'll definitely be doing cams and stuff with it. But it does need ring gap because it's a Gen 4, so that means you can make a lot of power with it, right? Although it's pretty ugly right now. Much better now? Oh yeah, it might have been. Your live chat has ended. So we'll get rid of that. There we go. Yeah, it was probably too much. I don't have that kind of bandwidth. I did. I boosted. I added turbo. What adapter and blower are you using? We're using the one from Tom at, here, I'll show you. Didn't use engines from this gentleman here. Can you see? Let's see. There you go. I could get it just right. There you go. Can you see his phone number and stuff on there? It's hard because it's reflecting everything. There you go. 906-399-7643, I think is what his number is. The Muse Engineering. Super Tom. I thought you were hunting in the Amazon. No, I'm at West Tech. Max lift for a stock big block Chevy 781 heads. I don't understand the question. Are you talking about the max lift for the head? Like how much lift will the retainer to seal clearance accept, or how much piston to valve clearance is that your question? Would you be interested in testing an LS3 intake? Because I'm getting one ported soon by GPI. I've never tried one. Right now, I don't have an LS3 to test it on. So, and that's why we do experiments like running the Facebook deal too, because I wanted to test it and see what happened to see if people were interested in showing up from Facebook. But as it turned out, it it sucked all our bandwidth. This blower is the adapter is set up to accept either the 5.4 or the 5.8 factory GT45 blowers. This one that I have is not either one of those. It's actually a Ford Racing version, but it's the same thing. It's a 2.3 liter. So you can use the 122 or the 2.3 liter. How much boost can you get out of an LSA supercharger? That's not really the question. The question that you want to ask is how much power can I get out of it? And I've seen some really big numbers from some modified ones. Could you run enough charge pipe to negate the use of an air-to-air intercooler? You mean you're thinking that you're going to get cooling just from the charge pipe? That's not going to happen. The block that we were working on is an iron block. The block that we're going to run the blower on is an aluminum block, an aluminum L33. Yeah, Dan, your Porsche has rear-mounted turbos, right? So I don't know what your deal is, but you're gone. Matt and I actually, Matt and I get along very well. That's good people. I don't know why you're coming here mouthing off about it, but you're not coming here and doing it anymore. The charge pipe does not act like an intercooler. Yeah, there's not enough contact and not enough heat rejection because it doesn't. Most of the air doesn't touch the pipe. There's a boundary layer. Most of it's flowing. All the hot stuff's flowing in the middle, and so if you had something to mix the air around, that might be, which is an intercooler core, to mix the air around a little bit, you might get more, but otherwise you're not going to do that. Tony, which of those blocks do you feel better with about a turbo application, iron or aluminum? The choice isn't iron or aluminum. The choice is which particular block. We've run big bangs on the 4.8 and the 5.3 and the 6.0 Gen 3 stuff, and then a Gen 4 6.0. Those are all iron blocks. I haven't run a big bang on an aluminum motor. The only one that I would do that on is the 5.3. The 5.3 aluminum block. It has the thickest sleeves. I've never tried that. I normally don't go over somewhere 1,000. We've gone maybe 1,100 horsepower, whatever, on some of the aluminum blocks, only because you could get to that power level at such low boost levels. So if you put together like a 6.2, like an LS3, and you put a good camshaft in it, it's going to be like at 550 or 560 horsepower. And you don't have to add very much boost to be in the 4-digit range. So it's fairly easy. But the only one that I know of that guys are making lots and lots of power, like 1,400 or 1,500, is the aluminum 5.3. So I'd use that one, or I would use these iron blocks. And quite honestly, if I was running 1,500 horsepower and wanted to run 1,500 horsepower a lot, I don't know that I would use a production block anymore. So the rich condition, this live feed is not the place for this. It is. If you want to ask a question, this is the place. There might be guys here that can help you. I don't do testing in the car with a factory management system. So we can give you maybe ideas on what to look for, but all of my testing is on the engine dyno and almost exclusively with aftermarket ECUs. So what are good NA 4.8 mods? A camshaft for any LS is the first thing that you should do. Although on a 4.8, you got to be careful about putting too big of a camshaft in it. Long tube headers help. The problem with the 4.8 is that you're not going to get a lot from, the truck intake is really good on it. The heads are already flow enough for that. Unless you're trying to make power at a much higher engine speed, then you start putting camshaft and ported heads and different intake manifolds on there. But you're definitely going to trade power down low. Have you done any direct testing on a single pass versus a dual pass for the blower intercooler like you have to see what exactly works? So are you talking about, what I was talking about is running water from our dyno through half of the intercooler core, looping it back around, and then running it back through. If you run cold air through both sides and then cold water through both sides simultaneously and then out, that will work better because it will cool both sides of the intercooler better. You'll have a lower average transfer medium temperature, intercooler temperature. So if you're running more boost, you'll get more gain because you're making the much hotter stuff now cooler. The intercooler will be more efficient the colder the water is that you have running through it. I need a shirt that just says I'm here for data. Aftermarket cathedral port heads or aftermarket rec port heads on the Max Effort NA60. Either one of those will work. If you look at the video that I have up on LS3 rec port heads, we tested on a 468-inch motor, making more than 700 horsepower. So you need a lot of motor to do that. And I don't know that a 6-liter can take advantage of there are ported LS3 heads that flow 370 or 380 CFM. I don't know that you can put together an NA 6-liter that's going to take advantage of that. I mean, I don't know that most people that build them will build them to take advantage of that. It's possible with that displacement, but it's really, really expensive. Yeah, we don't have a poll, right? Okay, here we'll do a quickie poll. Will 4.8 go back together and run? The one that we just watched me take apart. Classic Cruiser, thank you. So quick poll, because we only have about 12 minutes left. Peter, happy to help. See, I told you, if you ask the question, people will come up with some kind of answer. Even if it's an opinion, that's still okay. Mark, is that intake manifold different? 2014, 2000, oh, Silverado, oh, 5.3. Oh, so the L83, but those manifolds are not interchangeable. An L83 and an LY6? Do Procharger's boost ramp simulate a turbo over top mount blowers? I don't understand the question. A Procharger does not have the same, if this is the question, a Procharger doesn't have anywhere near the same boost curve that a turbo does. 835, you raised JJ the Boss with 2 GT35s. Yeah, the L83 is a direct injected LT based 5.3 liter, and the LY6 is a Gen 4 6 liter. They're different engine families and different intake manifold designs, and they're not interchangeable. Would it be okay to install a comp cam flat tappet on a stock 454 with 781 heads? John, the lift doesn't tell you anything about whether the cam will fit. The lift tells you whether or not you have retainer to seal clearance. So if or coil bind clearance, depending on what kind of spring you have. The duration will tell you what's happening with the piston to valve clearance. You need to know what the specs are on the camshaft. Sorry, I just got here. Can you show how the adapter fits together really quick? No, I can't, because I don't have the motor together anymore to do that. Richard, when are you going to do one of those crate electric motors? As long as I can put a Kenny Bell boosted pump on it. We don't know who's winning the Nova. That doesn't happen until Sunday. So make sure you're here on Sunday. We should probably do it Saturday. Saturday, there's usually more people here than... No, so we'll do it Sunday. Yeah, Robert, you can also use, if you are handy with drilling and tapping and stuff, you can use the roots blower manifold also. It just needs to bolt down there, and the pulley needs to line up, basically. Yeah, Stacy, I've seen people talk about that. Brian and I talked about doing that with the 5.3, but it's so much work and so much cost that any sort of gain that you might get from the L83 head being better than, for instance, a 706 head, which it most certainly would be, but you have to you have to change a lot of things to make it work. ProCharge one, would you recommend doing any supporting mods of a 4.8? Yeah, I definitely would do a camshaft with it. TAC, would a stock LS3 LY6 intake manifold be a restriction on a D-stroke 6 liter spinning at 7,500 RPM? I asked a similar question last night, but I think it was worded badly. It's not, you're thinking about it incorrectly. You're thinking that the intake manifold doesn't flow enough air to support that RPM, and that's not what's happening. The intake flows enough air. It will run to 7,500 RPM. The runner length is too long to be effective at 7,500 RPM. Even on a D-stroke 6 liter, it's still not going to want to make peak power at 6,500 RPM or 7,500 RPM. Even if you put a lot of camshaft in it and stuff, you need a shorter runner manifold than the LY6. Even if you had a shorter runner one that flowed exactly the same amount as the port in the LY6 flows or the LS3 flows, and it was shorter, it would still want to make power at 7,500 because it's shorter, and that's how reflected waves work. Did you say the aluminum 5.3 has the thickest sleeves? Yes, the L33 and the LC9, the cylinder wall thickness is thicker in that than it is in an LS1, an LS2, or an LS3. Best mid-level cam and spring upgrade on a 5.3 with 706 heads. Take a look at the video that I just did on the Truck Norris and the Sloppy Stage 2, and that will give you a pretty good idea. That way you can pick kind of where you want your power. Is it really necessary for a timing damper on a Gen 3? Sorry, I just thought about it. What do you mean? What's a timing damper? They all have dampers on them, and that's definitely necessary. It's not necessary for you to have timing marks on it. What's the max compression ratio a 4.8 can be modified to? How much do you want? You can put a really big dome piston in it. You could put a custom billet head on there that has a 20cc chamber. I mean, really, the sky's the limit for what you want to do. Realistically, if you're staying, are you wanting to stay with a stock bottom end? Are you wanting to put a piston in it? You got to expand upon that. Jeffrey, you're putting together a 6-liter or 706 heads, LS9 cam, and a carburetor. That will work. If that's what you have laying around, you use what you have laying around. It doesn't matter that it's not going to be optimum. That's the LS9 is almost never the camshaft that I pick. But if I had to pick a camshaft and it had to be a factory camshaft, and I was trying to make as much power as I could out of a factory camshaft, that's the camshaft that I would pick. It'd be soft down low, but it would make the most peak power. Which of the Steves is more fun to get a beer with? I don't get to do that a lot. I haven't done that a lot with either one of those guys. I have with Brule when we've taken trips sometimes, and then when we go down to the MPMC conference when we all get together. What can would you recommend for a supercharged daily? Nothing too wild, but good enough for it to breathe better, and any aftermarket head recommendation? Is it an LS, and what size is it? For a stock 4.8 with headers, what's the max cam? I don't know what only you can decide that. I can't tell you what that is. People have their opinions about camshafts, and it's wholly subjective. It's somebody else can't pick that for you. Somebody else can't pick the cam that you like. Only you can do that. NA versus blower doesn't matter for the cam. Timing chain tensioner, the Elm 7 doesn't have one. No, it doesn't. The 4.8 doesn't either. But I think you might be able to drill one to put it in there, but I don't know why you would. How far can you bore an L33? I think you could go out to 3,900. I don't know if you can go more than that. I've never had anybody tell me that they've gone to 4-inch on that. I'm going to try going to 4-inch on one of these 4.8 blocks. As a matter of fact, I'll show you. I just picked up a bunch of rods. So I set a trap. Look what I captured. Connecting rods. And they all say 121 on them. Connecting rods, yo. They still have the bearings in them. That means they're ready to go. Dan, how big of a cam do I need to get some chop? Do you want like half chop? Do you want chop? Do you want semi chop, quasi chop? Chop socky? Do you have a video on blow-off valve placement? No, I haven't tested blow-off valve placement. And I think that's probably more critical for 1, mass air cars, and 2, carbureted cars. For the amount a 4.8 can flow, what cam size will be past its limit? That's not how that works. You can put lots and lots of camshaft in there, and if you have all the other things that go with it, it will keep revving and keep making power. If you put a turbo on it, it will keep making, 12, 13, 14, 1500, whatever. That's not how it works. How camshafts work is you need to decide where you want your power production. Do you want it at high RPM, the middle of the RPM, low RPM? And then the camshaft will help do that for you along with the other things. Eric, I'm checking all the internals, but the shop that I'm building keeps telling me that the stock titanium rods and crank will hold 1,000 horsepower. What motor is that? Is that is it an LS7? Jeep, is 648 and 236, 246 duration considered a single pattern cam? No, I would consider it a dual pattern cam because of the duration. The lift can be the same. I'm actually not too concerned about the lift. A lot of times I'll run, like on the big block that I posted up, that one made like 930 or 40 or something like that. It had less exhaust lift than intake lift, but it had more exhaust duration, and that's not uncommon. Have you ever built an engine and had to go catastrophically wrong? Yeah, I've had stuff break before, if that's what you mean. I've never had one blow up. I want full chop. You're going to use all the speedometer, even the idle part of it. Good question. Would the stock LS7 titanium connecting rod hold for 1,000 horsepower in a boosted application, given that all other turbos will hold up? Would the rods hold up? I would think that they would. I'm only guessing though, having never run an LS7. I don't even know if I've run a stock LS7 on the dyno. I've been here and done cam swaps in somebody else's LS7, but I've never run one and never run one under boost, so I don't know. I think I would have to talk to Brian. Maybe they've done something out there. What exact Ford Supercharger are you running, and what are you using to convert it to fit the 4.8? Well, we're going to try, you can actually run 3 different blowers on this, probably more than that. You can run the 122 from the 5.4 liter Shelby GT500. You can run the 2.3 liter from the later 5.8 liter Shelby GT500. This blower that I have, this one right here, is a Ford racing blower that I think Roush did probably. And the intake manifold and adapter was done by a gentleman named Tom, the Muse Engineering. Watch, I'm gonna see if I can flash the. There we go. How's that? Yeah, if you have a speedometer, you want to be able to peg it. So when I say peg it, not peg it to the highest number, you have to go all the way back around and hit the peg that you started on, because you have to go all the way around. You know, that's like 211. I put the new 8709 R1 cam in a 5.3, and it pulls hard from 4,000 to 6,500. Cool. I don't know what the specs are on that one, but. Yes, a 5.3. I would like to see a D-stroke 5.3 with a 4.8 crank versus a 4.8. That already is a 4.8. And I have tested lots of 4.8s and 5.3s to compare them. You can de-stroking a 5.3 would make a 4.8. De-stroking a 6.0 with a 4.8 crank is common, and then also, which is what I'm doing is we're not doing that. We're making a 6.0 block out of a 4.8 block, which may or may not be recommended depending on what happens. Depends on, we're going to sonic check it and see how much wall thickness we have. And even if we only have a little bit, I'm going to run it anyway just to see what happens. But also you can do that to an LS7 block, but you can also do it to an LS3 block, to a 6.2 block. You can put the 4.8 crank in it and the 4.8 length rod or a custom length rod that's thereabouts, because they all share the same compression height piston. Daniel, Texas B224R cam with a 114 LSA 600 lift has real nice chop, but gives up almost nothing down low. A 224 cam will definitely give up stuff down low compared to smaller cams, especially compared to a stock cam. Dan, the owner's manual on your Turbo GT2 said that you can set the cruise control at 145. That was, oddly enough, that was one of the most popular questions when we were out at the Silver State. Whenever we were out there, any kind of late model car was like, can we set the cruise control at like, because you could run, you know, there were cars out there that could run 200 miles an hour out there. So can we set the cruise control at maximum speed? There was like 15 or 20 guys standing around talking about that. It was kind of awesome. How much boost are you shooting for? Are you talking to me? Is that with the blower? I'm just going to run the blower with that pulley. So I don't, whatever that does, it does. Would running lighter valves make more power on an LS head? It could. We saw a little bit from changing spring rates, and you might be able to get a little bit more if you ran a titanium valve. What it can do is help with more engine speed and more stability up there, and which you might see as power. Yes, the 4.8 and 5.3 can be bored to LS1 size. It can actually go to, it's pretty common to go to 3.902 or 3.905 and then put a 4-inch stroke crank in it. Yeah, I'm excited about it. I was just, while I was over at my storage area, I was on the phone with the machine shop. He goes, okay, before you say anything, I've got to tell you, I wasn't able to find any 4.8 rods. I'm like, whoa, stop. I found 4.8 rods. He's like, oh, okay, cool. He didn't want me to go off on the 17 tangents that I go off on of all of the projects that I'm working on and things that I need to get machined and all of that. Charlie from Ohio. How big of a cam is too big on a 4.8? I have a BTR stage 3 LS1 cam. So I've milled 248s, 243s, and a 4.8 going to my Fairmont. Is sub 1,000 RPM idle possible? Maybe with a real good tuner, I guess. A stage 3 cam is going to be big in a 4.8. I don't know what intake you have on there, and I don't know what the compression is. Tony, like what kind of RPM do you want? I have a video up where we went to 8,000 with that de-stroked motor. I have a set of LT1 powder metal rods rated good for 500 horsepower. Do these ratings take high piston speed into consideration, like 500 horsepower at 8,500 RPM versus 500? No, they don't. But also the rating for, I don't know what year LT1 you're talking about, but if you look at a good example is the connecting rod in all of these LS motors, whether it's a Gen 3 or Gen 4. I don't know that much about the Gen 5 stuff, but I think that they're as strong, every bit as strong as the Gen 4 stuff. We've done 1,500, more than 1,500 horsepower with them. So the horsepower rating of the rod is not accurate. I would be much more worried about snatch load at RPM than I would be about, you know, the compressive load because of power. Those things I think are not equal. Yeah, we're gonna sonic check the block before and then sonic check it after, and then I should have, apparently I should have digital photos of it. Yeah, Tom's in the house. So if you guys have any questions for Tom on the blower thing. Would you recommend a high volume, high pressure oil pump on a heads cam intake LS2? No, and especially if it still had the factory bearing clearances, I wouldn't. Mike, why you were talking about a de-stroke deal with big stall converter? Why wouldn't you just have it be the same, like without de-stroking it? Why don't you just leave the stroke in it? The Racer D, the video's up. You can watch it. You can watch and see it. There's a power curve in it, just like there is in all the other videos. Yeah, the de-stroking thing we talk about, I go over this all the time. It's cool, and that's why I like DZ302s, and that's why I want to build the Gen 2 version of the DZ302. That's why I built the original one when I did the reproduction, that and the Boss 302. All of that stuff is really cool. It just doesn't make as much power as the stuff that has more displacement. A 302 doesn't make as much power as a 351, and a 302 Chevy doesn't make as much power as a 350 Chevy. If all the other things are the same, it's bigger and it makes more power. I know I'm going to disappoint all of my D-stroke fans. They sound good when they're going at lots of RPM. But the thing is, for the range, like especially for 8,000 RPM, that has almost nothing to do with the stroke. You could run any factory LS stroke at 8,000 RPM without any problem at all, as long as you get the valve train right. The stroke stuff is not going to hurt you at all. $400M. This one is not a TVS 2650. This is smaller. It's a 2.3 liter. I think Tom said that he has a setup to run. Tom, don't you have a setup that will run the 2650? I think he does, which that would be cool. The problem is the 2650s are not inexpensive blowers, though. Will we see a de-stroked Big Bang motor? I don't know. Why would we do that? The Big Bang motors are stock motors to see how much the stock stuff holds, not built motors. Yeah, Dan, if you have that, that's why people use these different displacements. I mean, I'm building a small displacement motor, and it's definitely de-stroked by a lot. But it's because it's for a class that has to fit in a certain, cubic inch displacement. And if you're building motors for that, then you build them to do that. And then within that limit of usually cubic inch displacement, you want to make as much power as you can. So when you combine those two things together, you have a limited displacement and you want to make a lot of power. So you do that with RPM. I mean, Formula One is obviously the quintessential example of that. I have a Cam DLQ4 that has buck stutter when cruising at 2,000 RPM, certain it's tuning. That's what it sounds like. Andrew, if you kept the 6 liter and the 88 millimeter turbo, that would be a good combination. When we're going to see the t-shirt hoodie line, I know I need to do that. I just don't really know how. Tom, the 2650 Edelbrock head unit I have a setup to fit the LS. Okay, so you can put a 2650 on there. Andrew, so you're thinking a 540 big block with a 94 millimeter? 94 will support a lot of power. 2 more minutes. It's already been on 1 hour and 15. That's what happens when I'm working. But at least I got work done, right? I got the motor disassembled, which is good. How much would it cost to send up a 5.3 and a cam and various parts and get a Richard Holdner engine build? And there isn't that possibility. Richard, what gear did you use in your Mustang at the Silver State race? The fastest that I went with it was a 308. That was when I won at an average of 167. It was the stock T5 with a 0.68 fifth gear. So it was 1-to-1 to 1.68. So it was a big drop going from fourth to fifth. And it was the Crane 224, 232, because that cam was the first one that I used. And then I don't know if Comp already had it, but if they didn't, after that, they had the Extreme Energy 274 cam that is, mid 500 lift, 555, 565, 224, 232 and then a 113. And that cam's worked really well, even though which I shouldn't have done, my Mustang engine was lower than stock compression. It had trick flow, KPI, basically high port heads, and then some version of a GT40 or ported Cobra. At some point, we'll get an LT6 Big Bang. Taj, I do like the Redline stuff. I knew the Redline guys for a long time. Back when I was running my Mustang in the Silver State, I did a lot of stuff with those guys. They had good stuff. I don't know about a Big Bang LT6. Have you ever run a 5.0 Cobra motor? 93, 94, or 95? Those would be different because the 94, 95 would be SN95 stuff, right? They would have the different intake manifold on there. I don't know if I've ever run a stock one. I've driven a Cobra and a Cobra R, the 93 stuff. They were, they didn't make a lot of power, but they were cool cars. And I'm getting ready to test all of those upper intake manifolds on the 5-liter that I have, the cammed one. Have you eaten, swapped a Marauder? Everything going good? Just rich at start? Why do you have 90 PSI of prime fuel pressure? That seems like a lot. Texas, your 57 Chevy with a 5.3 and a 4L80. It depends on how much power you want. Really, a GT45 or even a GT35 for a parade car is fine. Or put 2 GT35s or 2 3076s on there because it looks cool because there's 2 of them blowing into the intake manifold. And you're probably, I don't know if you're ever going to use the power. If you are, then any of those turbo setups can do, the GT45 can do 700 or more, and the twin stuff can do more than that. This wiring harness for an LS swap, I'm not the right guy to ask about that. Because I added a 450 wall burl and put it in parallel with driving a fuel pump DM, driving a boosted pump on the stock pump. Do you need all that at idle? Why don't you have it come on, with a Hobbs switch or something? A BorgWarner a 366 is a decent turbo on a stock 5.3. That'll be responsive. Who makes the kit? The Muse Engineering. This guy right here. I know I'm shining that light in your eyes, but that's how it goes. That's like blinding. How I'm trying to find the right angle so that we're not. There we go. That's okay. It's hard to get it and have it not be reflected. Super Tom. I don't know if they run the Silver State or not. I haven't looked. I was talking to my buddy Bernie about that, about going back out there doing something. And I don't know if they still run it, though. How much less would it be going with a Ford Supercharger than a Chevy? I don't know. I don't know what the other alternative is. $10,000 RPM launch, that's up there. That's where you want your big, giant, heavy flywheel, right? Because you want that spinning at 10,000 RPM, you know, to get the inertia launch. The LSA blower can work, and you can make a lot of power with it. The LSA kit's like a complete kit, though, is not inexpensive. Turbo Sprint at the Silver State. Yeah, we could run in the 120 class, maybe. I think I could have got that car to 130. What's the fastest ride I've been in? The fastest car I've driven is my Civic. It went 226 and change. You can run an 871 on an LS. I ran a 671, and the 8 would also fit. Dan, did you guys coat the gears? Were they DLC coated or anything? Or an anti-friction coating? Or a ceramic? Francisco, I'm going to use Holly on the LS with the blower on it. Same thing we use on everything else. We just use 8620. Yeah. Coles, it was a 99 Civic Si, you know, a sedan, not a hatch. The hatch would not be my choice for that. The longer sedan was a better car. I like those. I think they're good. They look like little BMWs to me. So I always liked that style. I have had a number of hatches. I had a 93 Si, a 94 VX, a 95 Del Sol Si, 77 Accord hatch. I'm trying to think. I thought I had a couple of others. The Civic was not rear-wheel drive, which is why it was so good on the Salt. It's front-wheel drive and just track straight. engine or the drive wheels, the back end not wanting to do any nonsense. It was a good setup. What's the most powerful car you've been in? I don't know. I'm trying to think if we've gone for a ride in anything. Maybe probably the one that had the most potential maybe was I was in with John Mahovitz in that, in some kind of twin turbo Ford GT. So I don't know where that thing was set at, but you know, that thing would go, I'm sure faster than the Civic would. Alberta, Canada is in the house. I think I've driven 10-second cars, 10.0s or something, or 990s, that kind of thing. I don't know if I've driven anything that had more power than that. Yeah, the Civic was very aerodynamic. It didn't really take very much power to get it to go 200. And with the engine combination was not, you know, it wasn't the factory Honda effort. It was definitely more Fast and the Furious. How did you get 14-1 in a D16? I've never been in one of Nelson's cars. I like Tom, and I love the stuff that he does over there. It's pretty amazing. It's obviously very high end stuff. I want to do stuff with him. We've talked on the phone a few times about doing stuff. He's got some good turbos and stuff that I want to do stuff with. What I want to do is just take one of these junkyard motors over there and have him do his thing to it. The trans in the Civic was a 1.8 liter Integra LS trans, and we made a different final drive for it. We made a 4.0 final drive rather than the 426 or the 440, I think is what the B16 was. So we wanted basically more gearing. What's the highest kilograms of hour of air you've seen in any motor? You mean like from a mass air reading or something like that? What would be a better cam to boost? An E303 or 270? I've never compared those two on the dyno. I don't even know what the specs are on the 270 cam. And an E303 is a 220, I think. I think you'd be splitting hairs on those two cams if the 270 is kind of what I think it is. The thing that would maybe lean toward the 270 is it's probably a dual pattern cam, and the E cam is not. Should make an intercooler using an AC compressor. Yeah, we always talk about that. We could run ice water. These are -12s. We could run ice water through that and get it cool. But we're going to be running E85 in it anyways. It's Racer. It's not a 5-mile record. It's just a record on the 5-mile course. You have to go a minimum speed to move over from the short course to the long course. And then when you set the record on the long course, you actually set it at whatever mile marker you set it on. Most guys do it in the 5th mile. We didn't. I did it in the 4th mile because the half shaft pulled out of the trans. And then so the problem then was when I did the backup on it, we had to set it in the same mile. We had to set it at the 4th mile, which was fine because the whole thing decided to check out because we put a new half shaft in it that hadn't been broken in. And the thing just decided to let go. and at the 4th mile mark as I was going to 27 or whatever. But just, you know, you just pull the chute and straighten out, and I wasn't going to let off until we were through the 4th mile mark. I knew I had to get through that. But about the 3rd mile mark, the car was pulling hard to the right, and I was doing lots of like counter steering. Is it easy to get E85 in California? Yeah, it's right down the street for me. Yeah, I'm excited about running the Ford blower. It'll be interesting. I'm curious to see, like with the I don't know about the availability of these Ford blowers. Like I haven't searched it online to find out how many there are, how many people are actually selling the 122s and the 2.3s, the 5.4 and the 5.8 blowers. I don't know how many of those are for sale. I would like to see the adapter maybe for Tom also include. I don't know if there's another blower that's another low cost blower. Maybe the 112 from the. But again, the 112 from the 03 Cobra, they couldn't have made very many of those, so I don't know if that's a good option. I don't like the V6 version of the Ford GT as much as I like the V8 version. The body's not bad looking, but I wouldn't even a really good twin turbo V6 like that. I was disappointed when they introduced that. Yeah, Coles, if there's 112s out there, that would be good. Whatever if you can go out and see, you know, a few hundred blowers out there for sale, that's the one that you'd want to do, at least in my opinion. An M90, obviously, we know is just not going to support that. Where are the junkyard M112s? What are those on? Papa's Garage. How you're talking about part throttle timing? Is it still NA? For part throttle cruise, the timing might be 39 or 40 degrees. Crash Cobras. You're not going to find how many. I mean, how many did they make? How many 03, 04 Cobras did they make? And then how many of those have the blowers available for them? Maybe way back that you would have gotten a lot of those while guys were putting other things on them, turbos and Kenny Bells and Whipples and yada yada yada. Dan, you want to see a low buck Streamliner? That's like a low buck Porsche. Dan, I don't think you mean 930s. I think you mean crash 935s. Junkyard 2.2s. What are those on? Shopcat, thank you very much. Can I trouble you for a shameless plug? Got a guy wasting time and money on old junk and no one wants all my cats and kids help. That's a good channel. That sounds perfect. Shopcat Industries. The Mercedes 2.3 compressor is an Eaton M62 with clutch snout 99 and up and a normally snout plate. That's the Mercedes 2.3. Oh yeah, that's a small blower. That wouldn't work. That's smaller than an M90. That was the Lightning wasn't an M112, right? It wasn't it a 90? I have a request, and this will be the last one for tonight. I have a special request. Can you do a 2012 Chevy Lumina LTZ Flex Fuel V6? Put an M90 or turbos on it. I don't even know what motor that is. The lowest horsepower V8 I've ever dynoed was I had a Chevy 350 that made 229 when it was stock. It was a 2-barrel one with stock exhaust and a two-barrel cast iron 2-barrel intake manifold, quadra or a 2G, and then the factory air cleaner and all that stuff. And it made and now that I think about it, I think that the 360 Dodge van maybe started out near that also. Okay, guys, I got to get going. Thank you all for showing up and everybody for helping out. I got to maybe get this 4.8 liter back together, and then I've got to get the blower stuff prepped for the 5.3 liter. Hopefully I'll have a video going. Thanks, guys.